4 simple steps to make your intros better. Hook it, transition to the topic, create trust, and what does the audience get out of this? All seems simple, right? Think again. So step 1 of the process is you want to take your first 5 seconds of your intro and you want to try to match that as closely as you can to your thumbnail. I usually use a fishing reference for this, mostly because the title and thumbnail is usually what us ADHD people refer to as shiny object. That's what gets us engaged. That's what gets us the click. Now, that first 5 seconds after the click is really where you're hooking that person in. You're getting them about okay, you have to do this. Otherwise, you're going to lose people. So the first 5 seconds, you want to match as close to your thumbnail as possible. The title itself, try to get the wording of your first 5 seconds of that video into that space. Okay, then your background image or whatever your image is in your first 5 seconds is got to match as closely as it can to the thumbnail. Now, why are we doing this? One, we're doing this because it helps create trust with your viewer. In today's world of clickbait bullshit, everybody is very skeptical on a video that they click on, especially if it's going to be like 5 steps to make your life better, or I've made $37 million in a week. You want to know this information, and that's part of the tactics to creating a good intro, to creating a good thumbnail. Is it creates question, this curiosity gap. That's the term I'm looking for, curiosity gap. It creates this gap where you psychologically, you're craving that information. You're like, well, give me the info. And that's what people do. That's how they get you to click and stay on their video. If they can get you hooked with that curiosity gap, which is usually a question or a comment or an outrageous fact or a crazy statement, once they have you in, then you go from there. So yeah, the first 5 seconds are crucial because they help establish that trust between you and your viewer. If your thumbnail and title match exactly to what is your opening statement of your video, that helps establish that trust. Now, what do you do with the other 25 seconds that you got? Because you only got 30 seconds. And there is a little psychology behind why you have such a limited time frame to actually grab people's attention. A lot of it has to do with chemicals in the brain, such as dopamine. Every time somebody scrolls, they get a little hit of dopamine, you know, like it's like a little sniff of a drug. It kind of wakes the brain up. The brain's like, ooh, I like that. But if that dopamine hit, as that dopamine hit drops, that's going to get the people to move to the next thing because they're looking for that hit. It's there's been several studies done on this. One of them, Dr. Gloria Mark, she did a study on this, and she, her and her colleagues out there at the University of California, they came up with a interesting study that a lot of people's attention span is down to about 47 seconds right now. So does that mean that people can only watch a video for 47 seconds? No. What that means is if it's not interesting enough, if it's not popping enough, if it doesn't grab their attention, people will move on. If in those 47 seconds of goldfish brain, you have grabbed their attention enough and keep pulling them in, people will continue to watch. But you have to pace your intro and the rest of your video subsequently to keep that, and that's called retention editing. That's why Mr. Beast and several of those big multi-million viewer content creators out there, that's why their videos are so good, because they have paced those videos in such a way, it's like adult version of Cocomelon. It changes every 2.5 seconds because it's firing your brain and making you, keeping you hit up, okay? Keeping you drugged up, basically. All right, so the next step is the rest of the intro. This is the next 30, 35 seconds, whichever way you want to run it. I highly suggest you keep it short, simple, and sweet. Kiss. But this is where you're going to exceed the expectations that you have already laid out in your title and thumbnail. In this part, the next section of your intro, this is where you're going to create that little curiosity gap that is going to incentivize your viewers to stick around. This is where you're going to ask that question. You're going to create a statement. You're going to throw statistics out there, whatever you can, to get them to go, I want a little bit more of that. Tell me more. Once you have created that curiosity gap, then the next thing you want to do is you want to provide some sort of context as to what the rest of your video is going to be putting out there. Why are we watching this video? Why have you created this video for me to watch? What information are you trying to tell me? And it has to make sense. It has to be put in a way that people are going to go, okay, let's continue past 35 seconds and see what they got. The next thing you want to do is you want to leverage your input bias. You want the customer, your viewer, because that's what they are, they're paying you in time. You want them to feel like they're getting some sort of value out of it. So you want to leverage input bias. So use defining statements where you're like, I have done the research for you, so you don't have to. I have taken the time to do this, so you don't have to. That creates that value back and forth between you and your viewer. The best way I can kind of break it down in a metaphor for you is, let's say you have 2 bottles of wine. They are the same exact bottle. This bottle costs $50 and people think that's a very good bottle. Now, if you take that same exact bottle over here, but you say it's only worth $20, people are going to say it's not really that good because it's the value brand. You get what I'm saying? Same thing, but it doesn't cost as much. So therefore, it's not as good. A lot of people have this mindset, you get what you pay for. So if you can show the viewer that you have put forth a lot of effort into making this video, they will generally perceive that video is of value. Now, if you've made it this far in the video, I'd like to thank you. And as always, now, the final step of making your intro is the most crucial part. Besides your first 5 seconds, you want to do what all great storytellers do, and that is show, don't tell. The reason why you want to do this is, 1, YouTube has this nice little feature called autoplay. 2, most people have it on. 3, most people have their phone muted. Why? Because they're generally watching it when they shouldn't be. But if you don't have your phone muted, or your video player, whichever it is, your TV, whatever have you, a lot of people still have this autoplay feature on. So they're watching it, but they're not really listening to it. So whatever you're doing in your intro has still got, it still has to be captivating to the eye. You have to be able to show, don't tell. So you want to use visual aids, graphics, stock footage, B-roll footage, anything you can to make this pop. Any kind of visual graphics on the screen, anything that's shifting to grab attention, any kind of flashing lights, flashing words, stuff like that. This is going to help you grab attention. Now, can your intro still capture attention without being able to be heard, only seen? Does your intro have enough front-loaded stimulus to grab people in? Does it have a pacing of this show don't tell method? Does it have a pacing through that 45 seconds that really is capturing people's energy right off the rip? There's many ways to do this. I really don't have a good method. I can only tell you the best thing is make your intro. Put some time into it. Make your intro before you make the rest of your video. Watch it 10 times. And if you look away from it, or your phone or whatever have you, something else in the room grabs your attention, probably not good enough yet. If you make it through those 10 times, take that same thing and show it to your significant other. Show it to a kid in your family. somebody who's got a very short attention span and say, watch this. If they stay glued for the whole entirety of your intro, then you did a good job. If they don't, you got to rework it a little bit more. Try redoing the editing, try the pacing. If you make it past your initial viewing, and you make it past the 7-year-old initial viewing, and you make it past your significant other's viewing, and all three of them say, yeah, it's good, or all three of them have kept their attention glued to your intro, you did a good job. Use that. Then make your video off of that. And that's how you go. As always, folks, if you enjoyed this content, by all means, send a comment down below. I greatly appreciate it, and I'll catch you on the next time.